Welcome everybody. In today's video, we are going to be ranking all of War Thunder's rank 8 planes on a tier list from S tier to F tier. Now keep in mind that in this video, our planes will be ranked on their own performance at their own battle rating, as there is a pretty big BR discrepancy between a lot of these planes. And before I get into this video, I just want to say that I have created a Discord server. Link will be in the description, so feel free to join and check it out. Alright, let's get straight into the video. Okay, starting off with our first plane, the F-15E, and most of you already know how this goes. The F-15E has some of the strongest engines in the game that are very good at powering it in BBR combat. You have 8 AMRAAMs that are also very strong. Now the thing is, the F-15E has a little bit of a problem when it comes to its 1v1 flight performance. F-15 Eagles are not bad in a 1v1, but it is going to struggle against a lot of the planes at top tier, besides the Russian ones. But if you're talking about F-16s, Eurofighters, Rafaels, the J-10, the Gripen, the F-15 will always struggle and lose against these planes in most dogfights. But still, you have a very good kill potential and a very good flight performance for your average ARB game, so I think this plane will definitely be an S-tier worthy fighter. Okay, our next plane is the F-1680F, and this plane is at 12.7, is a Block 15 F-16, so it does have some pretty good flight performance and is on the lighter side of the Falcons. The thing is, this plane has 6 missiles, 4 of them are AIM-9Ls, and the other 2 you can carry AIM-7Fs. Now, the plane has a pretty good radar kit and also is a very strong in flight performance, so just overall a very good plane for 12.7. The only problem is the battle rating of 12.7 gets a lot of up tiers to 13.7, where you face a ton of Fox 3s. Nonetheless, though, this plane is a very good plane, but you are lacking RCCM, and once again, 6 missiles is a good amount, but just not enough sometimes, especially in up tiers, so I'm going to have to give it an A tier, not S. Our next plane is the F-16C, and this plane is a very good plane. In my opinion, it's kind of like a trainer plane for people who are learning top tier. You have a very good flight performance in a 1v1. You have a good amount of missiles. 6 missiles, obviously, is not necessarily enough. You want to have at least 8 for top tier, but it also is, more than enough to get a few kills a game. This plane is very fast, it's a very good engine, not as good as some of the best planes like the F-15 and the Eurofighter, but definitely strong enough to hold its own in most top tier games. The only problem would be this plane does compress quite a bit at high altitudes and high speeds. The missile count is a little bit low, and also this plane does lack a little bit in countermeasures. It's not the end of the world. You have 120, but obviously more would be better. Still though, I think this is definitely an high A tier worth plane. Okay, our next plane is the F-14B, and this plane is still very strong. This plane has a very good flight model for a 1v1, very powerful engines, and is one of the best rate fighters in the game. Has 8 missiles as well, but the problem is, once again, you are at a battle rating where you do get up tier quite a lot, and when you get into those 14.0, 13.7 games, you will struggle extremely hard just because this plane not only will lose to most planes in a dogfight in an up tier, but also you have no IRCCM, and your Fox 3s being AIM-54s are not going to be that great. Still though, not a bad flight model, but I'm going to have to probably give it a high B tier. This is one of my favorite planes personally, but right now in a bad matchmaker. Okay, our next plane is the Aviate B Plus Harrier for America, and this plane is pretty decent at a decent battle rating of 13.0. The main issue is it is a Harrier, and no matter how good your Harrier flight model is, it's not going to save you from most of the fighter jets. Your thrust vectoring is not an win button where you can press it and instantly win a dogfight, and you do have a pretty good loadout though. You have 6 missiles, and you can carry up to 4 AIM-120s, and you can also carry 2 AIM-9Ms. The only problem is it is a Harrier, and at 13.0 you will struggle in up tiers, but at down tiers you will get a lot of stuff done. In my personal opinion, a plane like this is bipolar. You can't rely on the flight performance, you kind of have to rely on the matchmaker, and that's really a big no-no for me. I'm going to put it in B tier, as I feel like it's going to be more fun than the F-14B, as you have Box 3s, but definitely not any higher. Okay, our next plane is the F-14A early, and this plane is pretty good in my personal opinion. This plane is an F-14, obviously, does not have the F-14B engines, but does have the other attributes. It is still very good in a rate fight, a very good flight model for the most part, and also does have the 8 missiles. You have 4 AIM-9Hs and 4 AIM-7Fs, which are very strong. You also get AIM-54s, but once again, not very effective today. Still though, I'm going to put this plane above the F-14B, as I feel like it's at a better matchmaker right now, but realistically in a 1v1, it's not going to win versus the 14B. But once again, this tier list is based on the plane at its own BR and its own matchmaker. Okay, our next plane is the F-16A, and I do not know why this plane is 12.3. Gaijin cannot justify anything to do. They give it 6 9Ls. They say it doesn't have radar missiles, so they slapped this plane at 12.3. So just keep in mind, this plane is 0.3 battle rating above a Phantom. So this is not okay. But still, because of the battle rating this plane is at, I'm going to have to give it an S tier. It is actually the best flight model out of all the F-16s. The Block 10, the lightest one. We have the same engine as the F-16 ADF, but you don't have radar missiles. Still, though, it doesn't make that much of a difference when you're at 12.3 and you're just rocking everybody. So I have to give it an S tier, but it should not be that low of a BR. Alright, and the next plane is the F-15A, and this plane is still pretty powerful at 13.0, probably some of the better 13.0s, but the major issue is no Fox 3s. You have AIM missiles, 4 of them are AIM 7Ms, and the other 4 are AIM 9Ms. The thing is, this plane does not have Fox 3s, and what that means is you're in a bipolar matchmaker. Down tier, you can have fun, you can do well, and up tier, you will definitely struggle, and I feel like 13.0 does get quite a few up tiers. Don't get me wrong, it's an amazing plane, but I do not think it's that fun to fly as of right now, so I have to give it an A tier. Our next plane is going to be the F-15C, and this plane is also quite good. It has the same loadout as the F-15E. It has A120As instead, but that's not much of a difference. The main difference is it has the worst engines. Now, the engines are not bad by any means, they're just not as good, but I still think this plane is very strong at 13.7. The matchmaker at 13.7 is actually very strong. You do get quite a few down tiers, and I think, this plane is not really an F-15E, but definitely worthy of S tier. It's just kind of sad that they're overshadowed by, the 15E. Okay, our next plane is going to be Germany, and we're going to go into the Eurofighter, and this plane is very, very powerful. It has amazing flight performance. It has a very good loadout of 8 AMRAAMs, or 6 AMRAAMs and 2 AIM-9Ms, and also you have a pretty decent flight model, or actually, my bad, the best flight model in ARB right now. It is stupidly OP, and it is actually very unrealistic. This plane can do some amazing maneuvers that just don't make any sense at all, can absolutely defy the laws of gravity. So in my personal opinion, this plane is a little bit broken right now in flight performance, but still, hopefully it gets nerfed in the future. This plane is overall very, very strong, very good engines. It can perform BVR very, very well. It can also perform, deck fighting and chaotic combat very well as well, because it's simply super maneuverable and very, very strong in basically all aspects of top tier. Now, one thing, or my major gripe about this plane is its radar kind of sucks. Now, the radar is a little bit iffy to use. I'm talking about TWS right here. Just kind of struggles to maintain lock and lock people. Still, though, it's still a really good plane. And one thing is, I will be featuring more Eurofighters in this tier list, which I will get to a little bit later on why I'm going to rank them differently. Anyways, though, right now, I think the Eurofighter is the best plane at top tier, so I'm going to give it an S tier. Okay, our next German plane is the MiG-29G, and this plane is royally interesting. It has the flight performance of the normal MiG-29 912 from Germany, so a decent flight model, but it does not get Fox 3s. Instead, you have 6 missiles. You can carry up to 4 R-73s and 2 R-27ERs. So that's the problem. No Fox 3s at 13.0. Same issue the F-15A faces, where you have, a decent loadout, decent missiles, decent flight model, but once again, you are at a bipolar matchmaker where if you get up tier, goodbye. If you get down tier, you're going to have a fun time. So I'm not really going to give this plane too high of a ranking. I think it's going to probably have to be genuinely a low B tier, or high B tier, my bad. Our next plane is going to be the MiG-29 912. Now this is the standard MiG-29, and on release 2 years ago, this plane was an absolute monster. It tore everything down in its way. But the thing is, the MiG-29 Fulcrums have gotten nerfed quite a lot in the past few years, and the real thing is this plane does not really maintain energy after it drops under around 1,000 kilometers per hour. And also, if you do fly this plane out, you will definitely realize that it's not the same beast it once was. The loadout is amazing, but the thing is, you don't get R-73s, you only get R-60Ms. 6 missiles is, it's okay. You have a very good radar missile, but overall, this plane is a little bit lacking in missile kit, and the flight model just isn't that good anymore. I still think the MiG-29 is a very fun plane to play. I'm going to give it a low A tier, but really, this plane has kind of fallen off from the meta. Okay, our next plane is the Tornado IDS, and this doesn't really take much of an explanation. It is a fat tornado, it's a fat bus, sort of fast, 2 A9Ls and a gun, but man, if we're going to be ranking them on how well these planes do in ARB, right to the F tier. Alright, our next plane is the F4F Ice, and this plane, I've said it before, gets a lot of hate, and I think it doesn't deserve all of that. The F4F Ice, yes, has a terrible flight model. It is a Phantom at 13.0. It will lose to every single fighter in the game, besides maybe, the JA37DI. The thing is, the F4F Ice has a good loadout. So you have 4 Aimline LIs, which are basically Aimline Ms with smoke mortars, and you also have the AIM-120. So this plane has a very lethal loadout for 13.0, and in an up tier, yes, you will struggle, but in a down tier, you will absolutely feast on players. I think this plane is probably worthy of a high B tier, but none higher, because once again, 13.0 is a little bit of a weird BR, because, up tiers are going to get destroyed, down tiers are going to destroy other people, but once again, the plane's flight performance really caps it off. Alright, our next plane is going to be the S-27, which is our first Russian plane in the tier list. This plane is honestly kind of hard to fly. The S-27S has 10 missiles, and it's not the greatest. You don't have Fox 3s, and 13.0, a lot of people do struggle with this plane. It's actually very fun to play with, but the thing is, 13.0 is, once again, I say it so many times, a hard BR to play at, and a lot of people do avoid playing this plane. They go straight to the SM just because the BR is not very good. Your flight model is not the best. It's okay for ARB, but in a 1v1, you're going to get crapped on. And once again, the SU-27S has no Fox 3s. You have a lot of missiles, but relying on them to get kills, especially in BVR, can be tricky when you're jousting Fox 3s. I think this plane is going to definitely deserve an A tier, as you can definitely make it work, but I don't think it's going to be that strong, especially if Gaijin does not change the BRs a little bit up. Our next plane is going to be the SU-27SM, and when it comes down to flight performance, it has better engines than the SU-27, but it also is a bit heavier, but it won't change much, as I feel like the SU-27SM genuinely just struggles a lot when it comes down to flight performance anyways in a 1v1. The flight model for your average ARB game is honestly fine, and you get a lot of missiles, 12 missiles. Your missiles they're decent, they're not bad. R73s are okay, they're really good at close range, but at long range they can struggle to get targets hit. The R27ET is not that useful anymore, and the R77s are not going to be as strong either. They have poor range, and they don't really hit consistently. The thing is, we are getting the R77-1 soon. It's not in-game yet, but hopefully it will be better. The thing is, the 27SM just has a little bit of a problem with its flight performance and missiles in general. Has a good kit, but not very good when it comes down to getting kills for your average beginner. I still think it's a very good plane. I'm going to put it in A tier, below the F-16C. Alright, our next plane is the MiG-29 SMT, and oh boy, this plane has fallen the hell off. This plane is not very strong right now. Your flight model sucks. You have a massive fuel tank on the back of your plane, which makes it a very big hump, making it a lot worse in flight performance. The plane itself, engines are okay. You have 6 missiles, which is not enough. 4 of them are R-73s, which, they work, but they're not that consistent at long range. You also have your R-77s, which is what you should be carrying mostly, but at the end of the day, not a very good missile, not on a very good platform. Yes, you are 13.3, but I just feel like this plane is just so freaking bad, and I don't think it's very good right now. I'm going to give it a C tier. It's really mid, but it will not be any lower. Okay, our next plane is the Yak 1-for-1, and this plane is actually very, very interesting. I don't see this plane that often, and there's a good reason why. First of all, you only get 4 missiles. You can carry best of 2 R-27ERs and 2 R-27ETs. That is probably your best loadout, but once again, not a very good loadout. You have good missiles, but just not enough of them. Your flight model is not very strong. You have a thrust vectoring engine, which is an afterburner engine, actually, but the thing is, it's still not very fast. The plane itself and the flight model isn't that great. It loses a lot of speed. You have VTOL, yes, but it's not going to help you win that many dogfights overall. The plane itself just is not very easy to fly, not very beginner friendly. It's slow. Missile loadout is not very, plentiful, and just a weak plane in general with no Fox 3s at 12.7, which is a rough matchmaker. I think this plane is probably going to get a low B tier, but I don't see this plane being flown out that much, and it's just not very, very fun. Actually, I'm going to give it a C tier. Yeah. Okay, our next plane is the SU-25 SM3. There does not have to be too much debate about this plane. It is an SU-25. It has 2 R-73s. And while it might be some of the better SU-25s in flight performance, it's not going to change a thing when it comes to your average ARB game. I'm going to give it probably above the Tornado, as I think it's a little bit more fun to fly, has a better missile and a better gun, but come on, man, it's an SU-25. Okay, our next plane is going to be the MiG-29, and this is the standard MiG-29, and it's the exact same as the MiG-29 from Germany. The only difference is it is ever so slightly heavier, so it's going to have to be below it, but realistically, Not going to make that much of a difference. Okay, our last plane for Russia is the Su-34 fullback. This plane gets 10 missiles, which is a very good amount for a 13.3, but once again, your missiles itself are not that great. Now, they're not bad by any means, but they're just not the best. R-73s are okay, R-77s are okay, but they're just mediocre, and R-73s are very good at close range, but a longer ranges definitely struggles, and the ET isn't that useful in the meta right now. The thing is, you have 10 missiles, you're at a very low BR for that, and if as long as you have people to shoot at and missiles to shoot, you will get kills. You just struggle a lot with the flight performance because it's really fat. It's fatter than all the Su-27 SMs, and also this plane is struggling and lacking in having HMD. Still, though, I feel like it's a very good battle rating, and I'm gonna have to give it probably A tier, but I'm not gonna put it any higher, as I feel like a plane like this will be a little bit difficult to fly. Okay, our next plane is going to be the Tornado F3. Now, this plane is quite interesting. It is essentially a phantom loadout. You have Skyflash Super Temps, and you have 4 AIM-9Ls, which is actually better. But the thing is, the Tornado F3 has a terrible flight model. That is the number one thing you will struggle with the Tornado, and you just are not going to have that great of a time when you're doing 1v1s, and even when you get pressured, you will have a lot of trouble surviving in these furballs. So genuinely, this plane, while it does have a decent loadout, is going to struggle a lot with its flight model. I'm going to put it in B tier as it can be an underdog plane, but most players will have not a great time in this. Our next plane is going to be the JAS-39C, and this plane is quite interesting actually. The Gripen right now is not in a very good state in a top tier. It has a few missiles, it has a weak engine, and it just isn't very good at top tier at the moment. You have a lot of countermeasures, you have a great flight model, you are very easy to get into a notch and defend missiles, but once again, your missiles just aren't that great when it comes down to killing people at shorter ranges, which is what the Gripen does better at, and it will really take you into a kind of category where you're trying to be most selective at getting your shots down, and you will struggle playing this plane. Still, though, I think it's a very good fighter. I think at highest, I'd probably give it an A tier, but realistically, this plane is not very easy to fly right now in the meta. Okay, our next plane is going to be the Tornado F3 Elite, and this plane is pretty interesting. It is essentially a Fox 3 carrying Tornado. Now, it still has the weaknesses of being a tornado, but still, your loadout is very strong at 13.0. You are at a bipolar matchmaker, which I've said a million times, but yeah, up tiers you lose, down tiers you win. So this plane will be probably under the F4 F Ice, as I feel like, worse flight model, but same loadouts essentially, as you get AIM-9Ms instead of the 9Lis, but it's basically the same in your average game. Our next plane is going to be the Typhoon FGR4, and some of you guys might be wondering, why is there a second Eurofighter here, as we have the Eurofighter from Germany? Well, the main reason is because there is a difference in radar. Now, if you're a Sim player, ignore what I'm saying, because in Sim it's a little bit different, but essentially in ARB, the Eurofighter from Germany does not have IRST, and IRST is very annoying because it sometimes switches to IRST randomly on the Eurofighter from Britain and all the other countries, and that makes it hard to shoot Fox 3s, and a lot of the times it will mess you up while you're trying to kill your opponents and can leave you in a pretty frustrated situation. So overall, I think it's the same in flight performance, a very good engine, a very good 1v1 flight model, a very good missile kit, but the radar is a little bit weaker, and that's why I'm going to put it actually underneath it, but realistically, not going to be too different in your average game. Our next plane is going to be the Harrier GR7. Just keep in mind this plane is not a Fox 3 carrying plane. It is actually going to be lighter than the AVAP Plus and also more agile, but it also has a worse engine. At the end of the day, it doesn't make much of a difference as this plane is a Harrier and it's not going to be good in flight model anyways. Your loadout is alright. You have 4 AIM-9Ms, which is decent for 12.3. But just keep in mind, you have the same battle rating of an F-16A, so it is a little bit strange, but in my personal opinion, it's going to be a little bit hard to balance this plane. I think this plane is probably going to be around a low B tier, as I feel like you can get stuff done with your 4 AIM-9Ms, but that's basically your only way of killing people, and it is going to be a struggle bus for a lot of people to play, especially the stock grind. Alright, our next one is going to be the Tornado GR1, and yeah, it's going straight to F tier. And now, there are some slight differences between the Tornadoes, but I genuinely think it doesn't really matter. Most people will not care if I state them, so I'm just going to ignore them. They have the same gun and the same missiles, which are 2 MNOs, so yeah, in F tier you go. Alright, our next missile is a Tornado GR4. And this plane's a little bit different. It is 12.3 for a reason. It has a ton of flares, and also instead of two AIM-9Ls, has two AIM-9Ms, which makes it a whole lot better. Yeah, it's gonna be probably D tier, but yeah, you're not flying this plane, and you're not gonna have fun. Okay, our next plane is going to be the Sea Harrier FA2, and an interesting thing about this plane is it is 13.0 and essentially has the flight model of an AV-8A and is not very good. Now, this plane, when it comes to loadout, can carry Fox 3s, but hear me out. This plane essentially carries 4 Fox 3s and it can't carry IR, so not a very good loadout, not the same loadout as the AV-8B Plus, and just a straight up downgrade. So if you're going to fly this plane out, you will struggle. I'm going to put it in C tier as you have Fox 3s at 13.0, but once again, terrible flight model and a bad loadout, not very usable. Alright, our next plane is going to be the F-15J, and this plane is pretty much heavier than the F-15A, but it has a different missile, the AAM-3, which has 10 more Gs of pull than the AIM-9M, and also has more range. The thing is, this plane is a lot heavier than the F-15A, and in my personal opinion, the AAM-3 is actually not that much of an upgrade. 10 Gs is not that much, it is not that much of a noticeable difference, as I feel like I'd rather take the lighter plane, and they do have the same engine, so it's not really a side grade either, just a downgrade in flight performance. So I'm going to put it behind the F-15A, but I do understand if people like it better. Alright, our next plane is going to be the F4EJ Kai, and this Phantom used to be one of the best in the game, a very fun plane to fly back then. And it does have a very good flight model of Agile Eagle. It does not have a gun pod, so you have the gun, the Vulcan, well, in your plane. And you also have a good loadout of 4 AIM-7Fs and 4 AIM-9Ls. The thing is, the F4EJ Kai is just a Phantom. And at the end of the day, that Phantom can only get you so far. 12.3 is pretty high. It's 0.3 battle rating higher than most of the Phantoms, and you will struggle a lot. I feel like this plane really has fallen off. I don't see that many of F4EJ Kais anymore. So I'm genuinely going to put it most likely in a low B tier. I'm not going to put it above the Tornado, as I feel like genuinely the Tornado might actually have a better time in the matchmaker. Because the F4 EJ Kai is the same BR as the F16A. Yeah, let that sink in. Okay, our next plane is going to be the F16AJ, and this is one of the best F16s in game. It essentially is the Block 10 variant, but it can carry radar missiles, so it's just a huge plus. It has the Block 10 flight performance, which is a very good one. It is the lightest F-16, and it just has an amazing nose control at low speeds, so a very strong plane with a good flight model. You can carry up to 2 AIM-7Fs. I think this plane is going to be definitely an A tier worthy plane, and at a pretty decent battle rating, but if you get up tiered, you will struggle. Down tiers, you will win, so once again, a little bit bipolar, but I'm definitely going to put it above the MiG-29s. Okay, next plane, the F-16A OCU. This plane used to be absolutely trash, but it has gotten buffed a little bit. It is basically an F-16C, but it has 45 countermeasures, has the F-16 ADF engine, so it's not. Alright, anyways, this plane just is not very good. It's the same BR as the F-16C, and is straight up worse. It has gotten buffed with HMD, so it's not as weak, but you are missing a lot of flares. You don't really have the flight performance or engine to back you up, and just you will struggle. This plane should be 13.3, but I'm not sure if it will get that battle rating, so I'm going to definitely put it probably in a high B tier, but not any higher. Alright, our next plane is going to be the F-15JM. Now this JM is basically a much lighter F-15C. The thing is, you also get AAM-4 and AAM-3. Now this plane also gets the same engine, so it's straight up just a better F-15C. So I will be definitely putting it in S tier above the F-15C. Okay, our next plane is going to be the J-11A, and this is just a much worse Su-27SM. It is heavier, cannot carry 12 missiles, it can carry 10, which is still a lot, but not as much. Has only one data link target, which essentially means when you're in TWS and you're shooting missiles, you can only shoot one missile, and if you shoot a second one, well, the first missile will fail. Now, this plane is essentially just a worse Su-27SM. Not too much to say about it. Not a very strong plane, but once again, you can't move it down, so I will have to put it a much lower than the Su-27SM. Probably a high B tier, but no higher, so next to the F-16A OCU. Alright, our next plane is the J-8F, a very, very interesting plane, actually. This plane has an okay flight model, but at 13.0, yeah, you're gonna struggle because in up tiers you get stomped. In down tiers, your flight performance isn't even that good as MiG-29s and F-16s are going to be rolling you. This plane though is 13.0 for one reason. It has PL-12s. Hear me out. Don't get too excited. It can only carry 2 of them, so you are gonna struggle. It is just a terrible plane in my personal opinion. You have the F4F, ICE, and the Tornado F3 at the same BR. Yes, you have a better flight model, but they get to carry double the amount of Fox 3s, and they have a better loadout. So honestly, this plane genuinely just sucks. I'm gonna put it in a high D tier, but yeah, there's a reason no one flies this plane. Okay, our next plane is the JH-7A, and this plane actually has a pretty good flight model. You know, it does bleed a little bit of speed, but it is very competent in a 1v1 and very good to fly and pretty beginner friendly in a dogfight. Your loadout is 4 missiles. You can carry PL-5C and the PL-8. If you don't know, the PL-5C is basically just an all-aspect PL-5B, so just a better missile. This plane is a little bit too high in BR in my personal opinion. You don't really have IRCCM missiles, and you're at 12.3. Now, 12.3 is the same BR as the F-16A, which is just crazy, and you only have 4 missiles, so it's straight up just a worse plane in every single way. I think this plane should be probably around 11.7 to be fair, or even 11.3, but yeah, it is way too high in BR, so I'm gonna have to give it definitely probably just a C tier as a mid plane nowadays, as you don't see too many of these planes being flown out. Pretty sad, as it is a very good plane, but you know, it is what it is. Alright, our next plane is going to be the J-10A, and this plane is just a pretty decent plane all around. It is, yes, a delta wing, so it will lose some speed, but you're at, once again, a good BR of 13.7. You can carry 8 missiles. 6 of them are going to be PL-12s. 2 of them have to be PL-5E2s, which are pretty good radar IR missiles. They have decent range, pretty good flare resistancy with the IRCCM, and a decent pull. The PL-12s are not bad at all. They are kind of a jack-of-all-trades missile. They can do a little bit of everything, a little bit of long range, some decent close range, so not a bad plane. Very good flight model, so I'm definitely going to be putting it in S tier, as I feel like it is very strong right now. I'm going to put it above the F-15C and the JM, but actually not above the F-15E. Okay, our next plane is going to be the J-11, and this is, once again, the other Chinese plane, kind of similar to the J-11A, but the thing is, this is just still a worse SU-27 in every flight model category, and it doesn't actually have a downgrade when it comes to carrying missiles, as the SU-27S can only carry 10, the J-11 can only carry 10 as well, but still, well, just a worse plane. I'm going to give this plane actually a decently high battle rating. I'm going to give it, or a ranking, I mean, I'm going to give it an A tier, but I do not feel like a plane like this will be that fun to play, as once again, if you get up tiered, you're going to struggle. If you get down tiered, well, you're going to have fun, but once again, very bipolar BR. Okay, our next plane is the Mirage 2005E. This is the Chinese one, and essentially this plane is just a very, very good. Now, the flight model, when it compared to the other top tier 14.0 planes, yeah, it's not going to be as strong, but still a very good flight performance. Your missile kit is insanely strong with your Mika M's, a very, very good close-range missile with thrust vectoring, and also Magic 2s are very, very lethal, and in my personal opinion, the most trustworthy and consistent iron missile I've used with IRCCM at top tier. The plane is a little bit lacking in flight performance, and countermeasures can be a little bit rough sometimes, but still, this plane is a beast and very fun to play. I'm going to have to give it an S tier, but probably I'm going to put it above the F-15s. Alright, next plane is going to be the F-16A MLU, and this is going to be the Block 20 F-16 for China. Now, this plane is the exact same as the F-16ADF when it comes down to flight performance, and it used to have an advantage because it had more flares of 90, but it got nerfed, so it only has 60, so I'm just going to put it right next to the F-16ADF. Alright, our next plane is going to be the Raphael, and this is our first French plane in the tier list. Now, Raphael is very, very strong, pretty similar to the Eurofighter in flight performance. The only difference is it does lose, and it is just slightly worse, but once again, Eurofighter is way too OP right now, and should be nerfed immediately, as that thing is basically a UFO that turns on its own axle. Here's the thing though, Raphael has a very, very strong loadout, and some people actually argue it's better than the Eurofighter, as the Mika M's are very lethal at close range, and you are very maneuverable with very good iron missiles and Magic 2s. The thing is, the Raphael cannot really perform long-range BVR as well, while a Eurofighter can. So I think the Eurofighter is just more a dynamic plane. It has more possibilities to play than the Raphael, while the Raphael is mostly centered towards closer range combat, which is the reason I'm going to put it, underneath the Eurofighter, but still an amazing plane and definitely worthy of top 3 in ARB right now. Okay, our next plane is going to be the Mirage 2000 CS5. Now, I'm going to enlarge the screen a little bit so you guys can see all the planes. Essentially, the Mirage 2000 CS5 is going to be very similar to the 5E in China. The only real difference is that it gets no Fox 3s, hence why it is 12.7. You get to carry 4 missiles. 2 of them are Magic 2s, the other 2 are 530Ds. And at the end of the day, it's not the best loadouts. It used to be 12.3, but it got moved up, thankfully. But still, 12.7 is a rough BR. I've said it a lot this video. Up tiers, you're going to struggle against Fox 3s. Down tiers, you're going to clap F4s. The thing is, this plane just kind of struggles when it comes down to getting kills, as your missiles are very strong. The 530Ds are very good when it comes down to having a Fox 1. The thing is, this plane just will not have the best kit, not very beginner friendly. Flight model is insane. You have a very good, maneuverability, but just the weapons kit is the main capping point of the plane. Still very strong. I'm going to give it probably a low A tier, as once again, not the most beginner friendly for getting kills. Okay, our next plane is the Mirage 4000, and a very rare plane in top tier nowadays because it is just not that great. You're at a very hard BR to fly at. 13.0, let me tell you, is not very easy. You have no Fox 3s, so keep that in mind, and you only get to carry a maximum of 2 radar missiles, the 530Ds, and at 13.0 in up tiers, they're not going to do that well. In a down tier, yeah, they can work, but you can only carry 2. You can carry up to 8 missiles, and you can actually carry up to 8 Magic 2s, which is honestly insane. Most people will carry 6 missiles and 2 radar missiles. The thing is, the plane itself just has a weak loadout, not necessarily in missile count, but just in missiles in general, the types you have, and you will definitely struggle in a lot of fights. The Mirage 4000 actually has a very, very good flight performance. It beats most planes actually, but only when it's on extremely, extremely low fuel. Otherwise, you're just a brick. So a sad plane to fly has a pretty weak flight performance when it comes to your average, fuel loadouts, and just not very strong in your loadout kits, as, your iron missiles are very good, but how are you going to get 6 iron missile kills at 13.0? Not really likely. So I'm probably going to have to give it a B tier. I'm going to put it most likely above the MiG-29G, as I feel like you still have a better loadout in general, but you are lacking Fox 3s. Alright, our next plane is going to be the Mirage 2000 DR1, and this plane is pretty interesting. Now, the Mirage 2000 DR1 has no guns and can only carry 2 Magic 2s. Now, if you put this plane any lower, I feel like it's going to have a lot of flight performance advantages. But once again, you also don't have a gun, so you can't really capitalize on that. 12.3 is pretty high, but at the same time, we have the F1C at 12.0 with the same missiles, but just more. So in my personal opinion, this plane could be a little bit lower, as you don't really have a gun. You have a worse flight performance than the normal Mirage 2000s. But still, man, not a very good plane to fly in ARB, so don't do it. I'm going to give it most likely a D tier. Alright, our next plane is the Mirage 2000D RMV, and just trust me, if you see a Mirage 2000 with a D behind it, don't fly this plane. This plane is a little bit better than the Mirage 2000 DR1, as the thing is, this plane has a gun, but it has the same loadout of 2 Magic 2s, which does not really make it much better. You have 0.3 BR increase to 12.7. This plane is the same BR as F-16ADF, which has triple your missiles and a better flight performance. So genuinely terrible plane, and don't fly this plane out at all. It's going to be probably a D tier as well. Okay, our next plane is going to be the F-16AM. Now, this plane is essentially just an F-16C, but it's much lighter, has around the F-16ADF flight performance with it engine-wise, so weaker engine, but same loadouts. My personal opinion is, when you're at top tier, I'd rather have a strong engine than a lighter airframe. I'd rather be faster, have better acceleration, than be less heavy or more agile. And genuinely, this plane is going to struggle at high altitudes with combat of BVR. Not a bad plane by any means, but it is not quite up there with the F-16C. I feel like in flight performance, still not bad. I'm going to put it slightly below it, but I don't feel like this plane is going to be that powerful. Okay, our next plane is going to be the Mirage 2005F. And I already have a Mirage 2K on the tier list. but essentially this plane is 100 kilograms lighter than the Mirage 2005E. That means absolutely nothing. I do not need this plane on the tier list, but I'm just going to add it anyways. It's going to be, well, obviously above the Mirage 2005E. However, it doesn't make much of a difference in your average ARB game. Okay, our next plane is going to be the JA37DI. Now, the JA37DI essentially is a premium and also a tech-free vehicle. Most people forget it's a tech-free vehicle, but dang, this plane sucks. Now, yeah, you get Fox 3s, 4 of them, so you can't get kills, but you have a horrendous flight model. The Vegan flight model right now got buffed a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's not going to compete against most planes. You lose way too much speed. Your engine is not as powerful as most of the planes, even though it is pretty strong at lower BRs. And you don't even get IRCCM missiles, and your max amount of missiles you can carry is 6. So, a big struggle bus for sure. And I do not think if you're buying a premium one, it is worth buying. So, in my personal opinion, a plane like this will probably have to go all the way back into C tier. I'm going to give it a high C tier as I feel like you have, a decent loadout. But at the end of the day, no one really flies this plane with a texture variant at least. Our next plane is going to be the JAS-39A Gripen. Now, this plane is very, very strong in flight performance, but here's the thing. This plane really relies on an aggressive playstyle. Not everybody can play the Gripens correctly. You got to be very aggressive, diving into furballs, putting yourself at risk of getting killed to get your own kills. Not everyone can play this playstyle, and not a lot of people do know how to master it. You're at a hard BR to play at. Up tiers, you will struggle against Fox 3s, while down tiers, you will have a lot of fun. The thing is, it's just bipolar. Very, very good plane, but in my personal opinion, very difficult to fly for certain players. I genuinely think the F-15A and the F-15J is going to be easier to fly. So is probably the SE-27SM, so I'm going to have to give it an A tier. It's not worse than flight performance. It is very good in a 1v1, but just lacks in missile kit and engine, which is going to be the same problem with our next plane, the JA-39C. Now, you guys might be wondering, why is there a second JA-39C? Because I have the British one. Here's the thing. The British one has one difference. It carries our daughters. Now, the Gripen from Sweden carries AMRAAMs. Now, technically, when it comes to long-range, AMRAAMs are better, but Gripens, they perform better at close range because, one, they have a lot of countermeasures, they turn very well, and just very easily notch missiles and are good at defending multiple angles at once. The thing is, when you're at close ranges, you want a better missile, and the R-Daughter is better at close range than the AMRAAM. So technically, yes, the R-Daughter is not really a better missile than the AMRAAM, but it is better at what the Gripen does best, close range combat, so I'm going to have to put it below. Still a very strong plane, but not very easy to fly in your average ARB game. Okay, our next plane is going to be the JA-37D Viggen. Now, this plane is 12.0, and in my personal opinion, that is too high. We have the F4S, which has just a better loadout. The JA-37D has 4 AIM-9Ls and 2 RB-71DS, which are basically AIM-72s. Your radar is pretty good. You have your PD radar, but the thing is, at 12.0, we have the F4S with basically 4 radar missiles, which are just straight up better, the AIM-7Fs, and also 4 IR missiles. Now, yes, the Viggen has better IR missiles, but your flight performance is not that great, and you just will struggle. And we have the MiG-23ML, which is just straight up this, but better at 11.7. So in my personal opinion, a plane like this should be 11.7, but it is what it is. This plane is basically a struggle bus at 12.0, and not many people fly it for that reason. I still think it is workable, but at the end of the day, your missile kit, your loadout, just isn't that strong. I'm going to probably have to give it a B tier in between the Harrier GR7 and the F4 EJ Kai. Alright, our next plane is the Nets, and before I get into the Nets, I want to remind you guys, this patch we have a premium Nets coming to the game. There is no justification here, as I have no clue why we are getting a copy and paste plane into a premium. This does not make sense at all. Alright, anyways, back to the video. The Nets has 6 Python 3s, so very good IR missiles. They're, in my opinion, the best non-IRCCM IR missiles, as they're basically just better in the nose with 40 Gs of pull and more range. Now, the Python 3s is a very good missile, but this plane also lacks radar missiles. You're at a BR where you will struggle if you get up tiered, and in down tiers you will collapse, so it's a bipolar plane. This plane's counterpart, the F-16A, actually got down tiered to 12.3, which is why it's an S tier right now, but in my personal opinion, this plane should stay at 12.7, and the F-16A should also go to 12.7. I don't know why there's a difference in BR. Yes, the Python 3s are better, but I do not know why Gaijin cannot accept the fact that some planes will be better at the BR than other planes. It does not mean you can lower a plane to an unreasonable BR where it fights phantoms every single game. Now, I don't want to rant too much, but essentially the Nats is a very strong plane. It's a Block 10 model, so the lighter F-16 variant, and it is still very strong in your average ARB game. So I'm probably going to give it definitely in A tier. Okay, our next plane is going to be the Baz. Now the Baz used to be pretty mid. The thing is, this thing is just an F-15A. As far as I could do research on, it is exactly the same thing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes I am, but I'm just going to put it right next to the F-15A right now. Okay, our next plane is going to be the Maz Meshupar, and this plane used to suck, and that was because it did not have HMD nor TWS, but it has gotten buffed with both of those things, and it's basically an F-15C, but lighter, so it's more agile, so it's just a better F-15C. So I'm going to put it above it in the tier list. Okay, our next plane is going to be the F-16D Barrack 2, and this plane should be 13.3 rightfully. It only has derby missiles, and it can carry 6, but once again, main issue with the plane is going to be its flight performance, as normally F-16s are very good, but this plane has a very big hump on the back of its forehead, meaning it is going to be a lot more heavier and brickier. I think it's not a bad plane. 13.3 is a pretty relaxing BR right now. The thing is, once again, if you get up tier, you're going to struggle. Down here, you will win. But I think it is workable, as you have box 3s, you have 6 of them, and you're at a pretty decent BR. So I'm definitely going to put this plane probably in a high B tier, as I feel like you're going to have a better time in your average game, but not necessarily going to be that strong. Okay, our next plane is going to be the F-15I ROM, and this plane is just a straight up better F-15E, same exact loadout, but you're lighter, so I'm just going to put it above it. Alright, our last plane is going to be the Kurnas 2000, and this plane has fallen off. It used to be the best Phantom in game. You had Agile Eagle, you had the Vulcan inside of your plane, so no big fat gun pod. The thing is, this plane got nerfed. Gaijin decided that they would give it Python 3s, which are basically PL8s, so more range than the AIM-9L, and also 40 Gs of pull. But then, giving it the Python 3, Gaijin was like, you know what? Let's not give it radar missiles. Let's just remove them. So this plane is at 12.3, can carry up to 6 Python 3s, but you're a Phantom. And I don't think a plane like this deserves 12.3. Nobody flies this plane right now in game. There's no reason to fly it. It is essentially the same BR as an F-16A with slightly better kits, as you have Python 3s. No radar missiles, by the way. I think if you want to make a plane like this playable, you're going to have to move it down to at least 12.0. I think 11.7 is a little bit low, perhaps, but at the end of the day, if you don't have radar missiles and a Phantom, and you're going to be putting it around 12.3, don't have fun with it. It's not going to be as strong. Therefore, the Kurnas 2000 will be probably given a pretty low rank. I'm going to definitely give it a C tier, below the JH7A, and I just don't think this plane is that good as of right now. Okay, everybody, thank you all for watching. If you have any critiques, comments, please do tell me in the comments below. If you have any advice, I'm glad to hear it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to join the Discord either. Link will be in the description below. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.